Welcome everybody to another edition of the Well Rounded Grappler. So, Shihan Allie, this is take two. About a month ago, we got on the call, and for whatever reason, had some technical difficulties on my side. So this is take two. So, Allie, thanks again for joining us today.
No problem. It's my pleasure, honestly. My mom always said when I was a kid that I had the gift of gab, right? She said you could talk about anything. And she's right. I just enjoy sharing my 61 years on the planet, whatever I've learned, good, bad, or indifferent. And I love doing that with my students, of course. And I really realized like years ago that I want to change the world for the better. How can I do that? And I'd say, hey, the best and easiest way is to share what I know. And hopefully that reaches out to someone and hits home and touches their heart. And like you said, that some of the things that we talked about on the last podcast that didn't come out, or our personal phone calls, that it helped you in some way. And you listen to my podcast and take a lot of the ideas and utilize them for your school. So that's really why I do this and enjoy it.
Yeah, so how I found you was just searching for things on Spotify to just help me with marketing specifically. And this
Okay.
was before I even opened up the doors to the dojo in January. I was listening to podcasts, reading books, talking to gym owners that I know, just
Right.
doing as much research because, I didn't want to go in blind. And when I typed in something along the lines of martial art marketing, one of your podcasts came up, the one that you do with Gus. So,
Yes.
and then after we talked, you said, "Well, I also have a second one, and that one's been running longer. It's called the School Owner Podcast, and I've been
Yes.
listening to that as well." So, tell us a little bit about both podcasts and kind of what is the main purpose of each of them.
Yeah, well, the Martial Arts School Owner Podcast, the one that I do with Dwayne Brummett, has been going, I think, geez, it's got to be almost 500 episodes. So it's been going for well over a decade. We've been doing the podcast. And it was started, and the idea came about from Dwayne Brummett, who wanted to do a podcast. And he thought of me and asked me if I would do one with him. And lo and behold, 10 years later, we're still going almost every Wednesday shooting out a podcast. And ultimately, the podcast and the other podcast I do, which is Marketing for Martial Arts School Owners with Gus Lopez, ultimately, those are just to help the industry. Like we just did a podcast yesterday with a very prominent martial artist who's been had a school for 40 years. His name is Mike Bogdansky, and he's retired now. And we wanted to talk about, we had a series that we did of 5 different podcasts called the Master Class Podcast. And Mike was, giving us his insight on, his school and how he stayed relevant for 30, 40 years and how he ended up retiring and retiring well so that he could just, do what he wanted, have enough money to retire, et cetera, all off of the martial arts and other business ventures that he did. And anyway, he mentioned too, he said, like, I can't believe that the amount of info you shared on both of your podcasts. He goes, you should be making millions of dollars with all this info if you were selling it and people would pay attention to it. And I said, well, we do it for free. And it would be beautiful to be able to make money off of it just to support our habit, of wanting to help people. But really, there's really no agenda. Like we don't sell product. We don't have a website. I do mention my coaching business that I do some coaching, small amount of clients and things like that. I do have a website business. We mentioned that, but it's not meant for those reasons to promote business. It's just meant to help school owners.
Yeah. But I mean, it is a good tool, by the way. I mean, some people listen, especially, if they're in New York and they start listening to you for whatever reason. Then they're like, okay, well, he's not too far from me, so
Mm-hmm.
maybe I might go check out his school. Maybe I might send
Right.
my kids over there. Maybe I've been out of martial arts for a while and, I just kind of like what Allie's saying. So I might come check him out.
Yes.
Originally, when I started doing this, and this was about three and a half years ago, I started doing these interviews and hoping that my wrestlers on my wrestling team would get some inspiration or motivation. And so for the first maybe 5 or 6 episodes, I was talking to local coaches. I was talking to some former state champions from Sun Valley High School where I was coaching. And unfortunately, just the the kids just weren't interested. They just, listening to an hour-long interview, that's audio only. They weren't that interested. A couple of them listened, but for the most part, it's like, they didn't really care too much. I think if I would have gone back and redid it, I would have done a lot more shorts-related stuff and more video and things like that. But it's evolved from there. And like I talked with you just before I started the camera, starting to branch out beyond just the interview format, which I'm going to continue to have guests. Like this is going to be one of the podcast episodes, but I've been making YouTube videos regarding a whole bunch of different aspects of martial art, right? Philosophy, ways to train, how we can implement jiu-jitsu and judo, jiu-jitsu and wrestling, jiu-jitsu and sambo, and all those together. And I've been putting those, 10, 15, 20-minute segments on YouTube as well. But, it's awesome. And we live in a cool day and age because we're able to connect, because I don't know if I would have ever heard of you or talked to you or anything like that if I wouldn't have found you online. So, it's a cool era. And, my whole goal for the business is to hopefully at some point be able to leave my full-time job and teach martial arts full-time. And it is growing slowly. And we are at 21 students. And just a refresher, the dojo is literally located in my front yard, so about 50 feet from my front door, 1,200 square foot facility, brand new metal building, 775 square foot of mat, which I have a 5-layer raised floor system, which is awesome, which I think is almost necessary for judo or any sort of takedown. But, when we had talked last, I had 2 classes, a kids class, which was maybe 5 to about 12 years old, and an adult class, which was 13 and over. And we had talked about how I want to eventually get a smaller kids program, which I ended up calling Future Grapplers, which is our 4 to 7-year-old program. And you said, why are you going to wait to open that? Or why are you going to wait to start that class? And I'm like, you know what? You're right. Because instead of having to make all these arrangements and having more and more and more parents have to change their schedule or think, oh, that time's just not going to fit for us, so we're just not going to come anymore, or whatever, start it now. And that's what I did, and we've been going maybe 3 weeks, I think. April 20th actually is when I started that. So right around 3 weeks. And I took a couple kids out of my kids class, and I put them into my Future Grapplers class. So, and that's going really well. That's going really well.
That's
so
awesome.
Thank you so much for that advice.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't, I wasn't born knowing this stuff. I had to learn it through trial and error. So like I might have, and I did, I started off in my school. I had like 3 classes a week or 3 days a week with maybe 2 or 3 classes on each day. And my anticipation was, when I grow, I'll add more. When I have more kids, I'll add more kids classes. But then I realized, and I forget who it was that pointed it out, probably one of my good friends, Joe Pulio, who owns American Jiu-Jitsu Centers. He said, you have to have more classes so that people will join that class. So once I learned that skill, I started, when I opened more and more schools, I did it with a full schedule. Beginners, white, yellow, green, blue, purple, black belt classes, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And I had all different classes. Wow. So I was able to fill those classes quicker. Like rather than having someone say, oh, I'd love to join. We love your school. It's awesome, but I can't come on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I only have Mondays and Fridays available. Okay, I'll get back to you. I'll let you know when we open those up. And then they go find another school because they want to join something now, right? So that's a big thing. A big, it's a good learning point.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I I'm lucky because we are small, and I only have 21 members, like I said, and I told everybody about the change in schedule, which it affected all the schedules. It moved my what I call junior judokas, which is my 8 to 12 year olds. I moved that up a half hour, so now it starts 30 minutes later, and it also moved the adult class up 30 minutes later. And luckily, I didn't lose any students. They all said we're going to make it work. We
Yeah.
like it here, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah.
But a couple things, right? Like you were talking about how earlier on you only had limited schedules, and one of the things that you changed early on was an expanded schedule. So
Right.
what else did you learn early on in the martial arts business, especially when you went full time into this? And
Yeah.
maybe I know that you've had a couple different like part-time jobs and a couple different businesses that you've done, landscaping, website design, a whole
Yeah.
bunch of other stuff. But as far as, your main job being the dojo, what's some of the things that you learned earlier on that you ended up changing because it just, it wasn't working for the business at that time?
Yeah, well, the list is endless when it comes to what I tried and what I did and what didn't work and what worked. Like, but I own my own landscape construction company, which was to me, one of my main livelihood. Right, that's where I made my living. And then I was teaching martial arts, and I wanted to eventually go full time in the martial arts. So I had to make a decision, right? I had to decide, am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to be able to pay my bills and make a living? And I took a leap of faith. The good news was that I had a big landscape business, so I was able to sell it for a decent amount of money. And then I was able to jump full time in the martial arts. And that's one thing that, and again, it's hard for me to say you should do this, give everything else up, and just dig in. But it's just like anything else. If you for example, if I have a student and they train with me in ninjitsu, but they also
Yeah.
do BJJ and they also do kung fu, they're never going to be as good as they could be as if they just took all the time that they were training and putting into one art. Right? Everyone wants to dabble in a bunch of different things. So my suggestion is if you're going to do it full time, do it wholeheartedly. And the minute I did that, I was, instead of going to landscape at 8 o'clock in the morning and work till 2 and then let my crew finish and me come home, shower and take a nap and go to the dojo, I was at the dojo from 9:30 in the morning till 9:30 at night, literally. Right. So I put all that extra
Yeah.
time that once was put into my landscape business, physically, mentally, and I put it only into my martial art business, and the school
Yeah.
started to flourish because where you put your energy and your effort, that's where you'll grow. Just like if you go to the gym, but you also do a bunch of other things, you might get in decent shape. But if you really want to be a bodybuilder, you got to focus on the weights and shaping the body in order to grow and build the muscle so that you could be where you want to be. So you just really have to dig in and really put the effort forward. And I find the biggest struggle, though, with a lot of schools is that they don't really, put the time in. Even full-time school owners, they'll show up at their school starts classes at 4, they'll get there at 3:30. They'll clean up and organize and open up and turn the heat and the lights on, and then they put their uniform on and they teach. But the other 6 or 8 hours during the day that they're wasting time doing whatever they're doing, you should be marketing, getting in contact with the students, building up your list of potential prospective students. There's a lot that you could be doing. And of course, the more effort you put into that, the more students you're going to get on the back end.
Yeah. And anybody that's listening to this that is thinking about opening up a dojo, and Dwayne and Allie, I know you're going to agree with this. And this is something that I did and something that was given to me as advice. Start advertising early, months early. Tell people that you're going to open months early so that you spark interest before the doors open. So you
Right.
have a couple students that are already there or already on an email list and already
Yeah.
talking about it, and you put up signs early. And I had the sign for the dojo posted, on the side of the building a month before we opened, and luckily I had I think maybe 6 or 7 students to start, which was awesome. And I've listened to different shows and different videos about people that have opened martial art business, and they said that we opened day one and didn't have any students, and it took us a week or 2 weeks or sometimes longer for us to even get anybody to come inside the door. So is that some advice that you would definitely agree with?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Like, for example, if you are going to open up a school, first thing you do is you go around and you find a facility, right? And once you find the facility, you start building it out to get it ready so that you can open up and do classes. But my suggestion is, from the minute you sign the lease, you should have a website up and running, and then you should start marketing your pre-release. We had a school in Florida that opened up, and we had 25 people join before we were even done with construction. So, we had them in the door signing up. We would have days, okay, well, we're not finished building, but why don't you come down and take a look at what the school is going to look like? We'll go over the plans with you and do an interview. And we were signing people up before we even had the mats in. So that's a doable thing. And you should also start right away with the end in mind, thinking of what your marketing is going to be like and so on. Because a lot of times people, they run everything on a shoestring budget. And they're like, okay, well, when I get more students, I'll do some advertising. But it's the actual opposite, right? You got to advertise in order to get the students. So you got to have some seed money, a few dollars here and there. But you could also have, literally the $0 grassroots marketing that doesn't cost you a lot of money to get people through the door. And, it's always that ABM philosophy, always be marketing, right? Or ABA, always be advertising, right? And ABS, always be selling, right? Like, those are the things that we have to work on, because look, the school will only survive if you have new students coming in all the time. Sadly, that's the nature of our business, our school business, is that people will join and quit. No matter what you do, no matter how great you are, no matter how much they love it, they'll move, they'll get sick, they'll get tired, they'll get bored, they'll lose motivation, lose their job. There's always going to be attrition. So
they'll become teenagers.
Yeah. They get a girlfriend, or they're older and they're in their 20s and they get married. Now their wife is like, you better get a good job and you got to stop wasting time in this so-called hobby of yours. But anyway, that's natural. It's going to be, a few people in the door, a few people out the back door. So you got to always continually market to bring people in. It's a little frustrating at times. Retention is a very important thing, learning how to keep students longer, but it's just a natural turnover. There's always going to be a natural turnover.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So a couple things. So I told you a little bit about what I've been doing. We've been open since first week in January. Again, I told you about my facility. It's at my house, so there's pros and cons for that.
Yes.
We don't have any bathrooms. Well, we do in the house, obviously, but don't have any bathrooms. I'm going kind of limited with the HVAC, so just some space heater type things,
right,
and some window units. But luckily, in North Carolina, it doesn't really get very cold here for very long. So
right,
most of the year, it's going to be we can just kind of open the doors, because I have some garage doors on the side of the dojo, and we can just open the doors and it's fine. I mean, obviously it might be a little muggy some days, but it's not like 110 in the dojo. Right. So I've done several different marketing approaches. I've done some paid Facebook marketing. I've done the email lists. I've done, this will be my third round. I just sent out more mail flyers, so just physical mail flyers, which again, like I learned that you can get these deals called everyday deliverable mail, and you can, hand in hundreds of flyers that have pre-postage paid, and they end up being, I think, 11 cents each. So that's a lot cheaper,
right,
than to put a 76-cent stamp or whatever they were.
Right.
I've done, I just hired a freelance person to redo my website. So now
Great.
my website looks even better. I've had a little bit of professional photographers come in. Um, I have a distributor that I'm working with that I buy and sell gis for, but I don't require them to buy a gi from me. But the majority of them do actually, you
Yeah.
know, and the ones that don't, I'm okay with it. You know, I'm pretty lenient about that because you know if they like their gi and you know they want to order a green one or whatever, and I don't have a green one, like I don't care. Like I'm not really too opposed to doing something like that. So just you know, just going off of some of that stuff, where I am now, some things that you've heard. You know, what are some things that you would advise for me to think about going forward, or some strategies that you don't hear me talking about that maybe I should take advantage of?
There's a million things I could give you. One thing that stuck out in my head with what you just said is that you don't make it mandatory for them to buy the uniforms from you. In my school, they have to buy, and we get, you know, when they first join, they get a uniform, but after that, they have to buy all their equipment and all their uniforms from us. And when I say equipment, we teach like 18 different weapons, so they have to buy all of that from us. So all of our weaponry, uniforms, clothing is all tied into our curriculum, meaning like they get to white belt, they have to buy sparring gear, and the sparring gear has to come from our store. Now, there's a few reasons why we do that. One, we're pretty transparent. I say, look, if you're going to spend your money with someone, you might as well spend it with us because that's how I pay my instructors and pay my electric bill and pay my mortgage at home so that I could keep giving you the knowledge and sharing with you, right? So that's the first and foremost, most transparent thing, that I am going to make some money on it, but you're going to pay the other company who you have no loyalty to, and they're going to make the money on it. Might as well do it with me. Right. So it's not like we charge more. Most of the time we give them as good as, if not a better deal than who they're buying from. The other thing too, with the uniforms, I feel like it depends on the school. I know in BJJ and other systems, people could wear whatever they want. In our school, we have a very uniform process. So everybody wears the same thing. They have the same look. The patch goes on the same spot. They're not allowed to decorate their gi with all different patches and sponsors and all that other stuff. So that we look more like, kind of like a military school would look, or a Catholic school. You know, everyone's dressed the same, looks the same, acts the same, because I believe that it ties into the traditions and the way things are done. Like you may find later on as you grow, you don't want to have rogue people running around doing what they want, because it'll cause a struggle within your school. However, I have a lot of friends that run BJJ schools, and some of them are very free and open, and people get to wear what they want, buy their gis from different people. And some of the gis are expensive, man, like $200, $300, right? You know, fancy uniform.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, why not you sell it and you make the few extra 20% or 30% on the retail sale? They're still getting the same uniform. They're just buying it from you. But I do have some friends that run schools. They don't want to be bothered with retail. They don't want to sell things. They just want to teach, have class, and that's it. It really has to, you know, it has to do with your philosophy,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
right?
Another thing that I talked about, or that I forgot to mention. So I've also done yard signs
Mm-hmm.
at intersections, which I think it could be luck, it could be the area, it could just be random reasons. But I've got more calls from those yard signs than anything else.
That's
Right.
great.
I've also gone into Facebook groups, some public, some private that I've had to join.
Yeah.
I've had a little bit of luck from that. I know that one of the keys to marketing, and at least from what I understand and what I keep hearing, is you have to first just let people know that you exist,
Right.
let people know that you're there, and then try to communicate that in several different markets or several different ways, right? Some
Right.
paper copies, some electronic copies, some instant messaging, some email, things like that. And with my paid Facebook advertising, like that did nothing, at least the first round,
Okay.
or at least the first time I had to go with it. I didn't dump a lot of money into it. I think maybe I think maybe $20 a day or $25 a day for a week, and I got no calls from that. But I mean, I heard that is kind of tricky sometimes
Yeah,
because you have to set up the parameters for very specific people and very
right.
specific areas for it to be effective, which I think if I do it again, I might get some advice from somebody, or maybe have somebody help me and I could pay him a little bit to
Yeah, a
help.
good person to go to if you do decide is Gus Lopez from Lead Hunter Media. He's the guy I do with the sister
Okay.
podcast on it. But
Hmm.
you know what's
Yeah.
interesting? I heard a few things that you said. Number one, you said road signs do really well, right? So get double the amount of road signs out, right? That's what I look at it. Sometimes we're satisfied with what we're getting, so we stay at that current level. But if you want to bring in more, just do more, right? And a
Hmm.
lot of the
Yeah.
grassroots marketing, you could go to all the local food marts, shopping centers. I don't know what the name of the supermarket centers that are out by you, Walmart, things like that. You could then go and put flyers on cars or stand outside the shop and say, hey, are you interested in learning martial arts and self-defense? Yes, I am. Okay, here, we're giving out a 2-week free membership. Fill out your name and we'll call you and schedule. Or here it is. Let's put you on the schedule. Come in on Tuesday. Like you have to be proactive. Like when I was first starting, I literally, there was not a rock unturned. If you turned a rock over in my neighborhood, there's my sign on the bottom of the rock, right? Like literally, like we were on buses, we were on bus terminals, we were on the benches, we were on supermarket carts. When you flip that little thing down in the cart that had our logo on it, we were on the receipts of supermarkets. We had, yeah, everything and anything that you could possibly do, we were doing.
Hmm.
So we were,
Yeah.
the whole ultimate goal is to be the most famous martial arts school in your town, right? To be the most well known, right? To make sure you connect and develop relationships with the PTA, PTO, with local council members, with the Better Business Bureau. Join all the Facebook groups of your area, mom and pop of what your town is, dads of your town, single dads, single moms. Like, just go on Facebook and search all the different combinations of whatever that are social and ask if you could be a part and then offer them something. Say, I'm not advertising. I'm not trying to sign people up, but I do have a free program. I'd like to give away a week free of martial arts so you could learn some basic self-defense, or offer that
Hmm.
group a discount for all their members or something of that effect. But always be marketing, right? Always be selling.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And I am, and for the most part, I'm taking most of the money that I'm making in the dojo and putting it back into it.
Okay.
I just built and installed some new wall mats.
Nice.
I finished the insulation. I bought a desk. I'm gonna frame out a little area that I could start recording some of my stuff for the
Great.
podcast, for the YouTube videos. Have you seen those walls that kind of have the slatted pieces of wood?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about? Yeah, I'm gonna do the corner of the dojo will be that. I just ordered team T-shirts, and I did because I've worked with the company for a while because I used to get everything from them when I coached wrestling. So I have a good relationship with them. They're
Great.
local, they're fast, they're nice. They're not going to charge me $50 if I want to make a change. It's like they're super
Right.
nice.
Good.
It's a
That's
great
perfect.
company. But I decided that every member gets a free T-shirt,
Good.
and then if they want to order an additional one, then it's $17 or whatever. And again, like yes, like I'm not charging them for that, but I also have the logo for the gym and my phone number on the back of every T-shirt. So it's a marketing approach. It's also a reward system for my members. It's a nice dry fit T-shirt with judo on the front with like some sword strikes through it. Like
Yeah.
a worn out kind of look,
Yeah.
if you know what I'm saying. Like if you take a piece of wood and you
Yeah.
hit it with an axe, it has kind of that look. Um, again, this is my third round of mailers. I just mailed them out yesterday. I did 617.
Nice.
Hired somebody to redo the website, about to have somebody come out and do professional pictures again. I'm having, I had another free trial last week. Had a couple other people that have signed up for free trials.
Good.
And, they got to finish their soccer season or whatever it is. So they're coming in 2 weeks, but they told me that ahead of time. They want to finish up their soccer season before they come. And, so, I mean, I'm doing a lot, and I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to.
Great.
But I I joke with my wife a little bit, but it's also got a little hint of seriousness in there too, that my full-time job is getting in the way of my judo business.
Right, yeah, right, exactly. Yep, absolutely. Well, here, let me give you one golden nugget that of something that you just mentioned that I think would be cool for you is you're giving away some t-shirts for free.
Yes.
So you might as well go out and get a sponsor or two to go on your shirt, on the sleeve, on the back, wherever. Could be a local construction company, a local restaurant, a local, whatever, plumber, tile setter, etc., and have them pay you like $150 to be on your shirts, and then get two of them, and $300 will pay for X amount of shirts, and that'll be the run
Yep.
that you give out for free. So in essence, you won't be paying for shirts; you'll be having the shirts paid for, and you'll be
Mm-hmm.
able to give many more of them out, right? So that way it's a
Yeah.
no cost marketing tool. And the businesses benefit because if people are loyal to you, they'll certainly be loyal to those businesses when in need of a plumber, a contractor, a carpet setter, tile setter, etc.
Yeah, I use that whenever I did wrestling camps.
Right?
I would end up, selling about 10 spots on the back of the t-shirts at $150 a piece, like you said, and that would not only pay for all the t-shirts, but it would put me in a surplus, so I'm able
Right.
to pay for part of the main presenter that's coming and things like
Right.
that. So I know for sure when I do start putting on clinics and stuff, and I've already, like, it's in the plans. I want to put on
Right.
a tournament. I want to put on clinics, and I do want to do that approach. Get some sponsors for the t-shirts.
Right.
Also get some people that might want to set up a table or two. That I got to look into that of how that works. Or whatever, or see if somebody can, like a food truck that can come there or something.
Right.
Just stuff like that, just extra revenue that I could bring in, and then a concession stand or
Right.
whatever. So I mean, I have done this.
Good.
So
Good for you.
so it's like I want to continue to do this, but again, like how did I find out to get sponsors, and how did I find out to to raise money for this and do that, and go set up chairs at a supermarket and ask for donations and sell barbecue from other people, other
Right.
coaches. I
Right.
got on the phone and said, I want to have a clinic. What would you suggest? And I'd rather not go into the hole for it.
Right.
If anything, I'd like to become a surplus. And
Yeah. And
luckily, they
it,
were.
it allows you to be able to give more shirts away and not cost you money. And that way you could say for every member that
Right.
joins, you get this free shirt, and it doesn't cost you money. It could even profit you
Yeah.
from the sale of the sponsorship and so on. So that's just another really
Mm-hmm.
good way. So yeah, I mean, there's a million different marketing tools, and we could go on for 2, 3, 4 hours on different ways to market and things to do and so on. So if you have any other questions in that regard, if not on anything, is that
Yeah,
your
I know.
daughter?
Yeah, she's
Wow, that's awesome. How
she's
old is she?
two and a half, two and a
Wow.
half, and I know you have a daughter that's an adult.
Yeah, she's
But
26 years old. She's in her room right now
yeah,
working. She has an office. She works remotely twice a week. I feel bad for the poor kid. She got a high-paying job in Manhattan, so she travels in on the train, an hour there, an hour back at night. So she's leaving at 6 a.m., getting home at 8 p.m. I'm like, honey, if I was a billionaire, I would let you work for me for free and do nothing
Of
because
course.
I
Yeah.
see how hard it is to work like that many hours. I remember I did it my whole life. Like I worked day and night. But she enjoys it and she's having a good time developing her life. But let me tell you, my daughter was like it seemed she was 2 years old. It seemed like it was yesterday. And now she's
I
26.
bet.
So time goes by
Yeah.
so quick. It's not a cliche.
Yeah. No, I know. I'm enjoying as much as I can, and purposely setting aside time, as much as I can for,
Yes.
to do stuff with her and to keep her
Great.
included. And she's been on the mats with me since she was 6 months old.
That's
So
awesome.
it's interesting because so two little stories. I'm sure you'll think that these are pretty cute. I was gone working or went to go get coffee or something. I was gone out of the house, and my wife messaged me and sent me a video. She's like, "Man, Olivia, that's my daughter's name. Olivia keeps doing something, and I can't figure out what in the world she's doing, and she keeps doing it." And then she sent me a video, and she's like, she's bowing to me. She was going like
Yeah,
that,
that's
like
great.
that. I've never done that to her, but she's seen
Right.
it for 2 years, and then also she does back falls, break
Right.
falls to
Right.
the
Yeah.
back. She'll hold up her X and she'll go down and
Yeah.
she'll kick her feet up. And again, I've never shown her that personally. She's just seen it, me
Right.
doing it with students hundreds of times. It's
That's
really
great.
funny, but
That's
I think
awesome.
it's important to get her on the mat and to, she's not participating, but she is around it and she's, running around and she's talking to people and she's seeing what we're doing, and
Yeah.
people are goal oriented, are health conscious, are doing something productive. So just all
Yeah.
of it all around is a good thing for her, I think.
Well, I do
So,
believe that my daughter is the way she is because of me, of course, and her mom, but also the martial arts gave her a very strong foundation, a work ethic like no other. Like I literally would have to say,
yeah.
"Can you shut off? You need to turn off right now because you're working too hard." Dad, I can't believe you would say this. You own your own business. Would you want your employees to shut off? I go, I would expect
Yeah.
them to at a certain point, right? Like you can't
Right.
work. So, but she's got that work ethic. She doesn't quit. She has grit to her. She's just very focused and so on. So I think martial arts
Good.
has literally changed who she is as a person.
That's awesome. So if we could go back to when you finally decided to flip the script or flip the switch and decide to focus most of your time on your martial art business.
Right.
Again, you said you still had a secondary business, but what? Describe kind of how that process went, and did you just say, I know I'm going to take a loss at first, or I'm not really sure if this is going to work out,
Yeah.
or just whatever your mindset was, and what was
Well,
some of the changes that you made, and how did that process go, and what was your mindset when that finally did happen?
yeah, the interesting story is I opened my martial arts school for a different reason than most people would think. I used to train with my teacher in the city. So I lived in Long Island. His school was in Ridgewood, Queens. It was a good hour with traffic there and back. I did that for 15 years, 10 years, or whatever it was, 6 days a week with my teacher. And there were days that it would rain and the weather was bad. So I said, I wish I had a place. So I opened up a little spot in my garage, similar to like you. I built something in my house. But you have a specific dojo, right? Like mine was a tiny little garage. And then I said, you know what? I should open up a small little facility, which I did. The square footage of my entire building, my first school was 600 square foot. That included the bathroom, the locker room, and the office area. So I literally, when we would do kata, like, regular forms, we would have to
Yeah.
step forward, bounce back, step forward, bounce back, because it was that narrow of a school.
Wow.
And
So how big was the mat area or the practice area?
maybe like 400, maybe 400 square foot.
Wow. Yeah.
Right.
That's
So
crazy.
I had methods of training people. What I would do is I'd line up 10 people, they'd sit against the wall, and I'd have 6 people or 5 people go. Then they'd switch and the other people would come up and they'd sit. And there were ways that we did things to make it work. But I got to a point where I had like over the course of the day and the week, I had probably like 50 or 60 students. That was my first year. They weren't all in the same class, but maybe I'd have 15 and 20 students in a class, and I'd have to sit them down and stand them up. And then I said to myself, and it's very, very serendipitous, almost like it was meant to be. At the time, my wife, my daughter's mom, and I got in my truck. I had an old B2000 pickup truck, landscape truck with the wood sides to hold equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, let's go look for a bigger school. So I jumped in my school. I pulled out of my parking lot, literally made a right-hand turn, another right-hand turn, like about 300 or 400 feet from my school. I passed the first building, commercial area, and then another really big building. And I see a little Japanese man hanging a sign on the wall, on the door, for rent. Like my car literally pulled over. I pulled into the parking lot, got out, and I bowed to him. He was Japanese, and he kind of bowed back and started speaking to me. And I spoke to him in a little bit. I knew very little Japanese at the time. And I ended up, lo and behold, within like 3 or 4 days, renting his facility, which was almost a 7,000 square building, 7,000 square, except some of it he kept for his factory and company and his office buildings, right? He had moved he was a manufacturing company for the belts that like spin fans in like a copy machine or a computer. And it was called NEB Belt Company. And so he had bought a factory in New Jersey, but he lived in my town of West Islip, and he was traveling back and forth, and he'd keep his offices so like 1 or 2 days a week he could stay there. So anyway, I had half the building, and I kept writing on every rent check. I'd write a thing and say, can you sell me the building, and can I have the full building to rent? No. After like 4 months of doing that, he got sick of traveling, and he picked up his family and they moved to Jersey. So he said, I'd love to rent you the building. So the whole building. So I said, okay. And then every month after that, when I'd write a rent check, I'd say, sell me the building, sell me the building. And he did sell me the building eventually. I think I paid probably about $200,000 for the 7,000 square foot building. At the time, it was like, the real estate market was very low, but it was like 25 years, 30 years ago, more than that. Right. And so anyway, I ended up buying the building and paying it off and owning the building, eventually selling it for 7 times what I paid for it. And, I had 3 schools at the time, and during COVID, I condensed down to another building that I had bought, also on a crazy deal. I was very good into real estate, and lo and behold, that's how I ended up with my school. And I went from that first year of running it in that small facility, and it was so bad because we would hit the walls, and next to us was a guy who had cameras, like old, historical antique cameras that he would sell. And we'd hit the wall, and they'd fall off the shelves. So the landlord hated me because I was every tenant was, we would yell, we were screaming, So when I said, hey, I'd like to move out and break my lease, he said, okay. Like it couldn't have gone quicker. When do you want to leave? Just turn the key in. Like he didn't fight me or argue with me. He wanted me out as bad as he could get me out. So that I was lucky in that department. But then I moved into this other facility, and I had so many good, really dedicated students. They helped me build the school, put in the floors, put up the walls, the whole nine. And I was there for 29 years, somewhere around there in that one building. And during COVID, I had no idea where we were going, right? Like I didn't know whether we weren't going to be allowed to teach anymore. They were going to outlaw martial arts or anything physical. So I got an offer on the building from my neighbors that were pestering me for years. And I would throw out this really astronomical price. Like, if you're going to make me sell, it's got to be an offer I can't refuse. Here's what I want. And when COVID hit, they said, we're ready to buy. You want to sell it to us for your price? And I said, yeah, the price I always told you. I'll sell it to you for that plus an extra. And they said, you got it. Let's go. We went into closing, and then I moved everyone into my other facility that I had, which is another 5,000 something square foot with an acre of land and patios and obstacle courses and an archery range and all that other stuff. So yeah, everything kind of, it wasn't easy. It wasn't like I wasn't lucky by any means. I made my own luck and, made it all happen. But at the same time, God was on my side and, kind of worked with me on a lot of things. So this is why I'm here where I am now.
Well, if you could go back again, and I appreciate the story. That's awesome, and it gives me a lot of motivation. But again, like, what were your initial thoughts going into it? Were you saying, I'm going to make this a very successful thing that I'm going to do full time? Am I just kind of jumping in with both feet? Am I, do I think that this is going to be a mistake? Am I going to go in debt? Just what are some of the thoughts, positive and negative, when you did it full time?
I started answering that question and I kind of went off target, right? So I opened my school just so I didn't have to go travel in the city every day. And I wanted people to train with. People joke about it. And my old students, you say, no, you wanted someone to beat up on a regular basis so that you had people to work with. And that's really why I did it. I just wanted to have a place to call home to train when I couldn't travel to my teacher. So the intentions were not really to run a full-time martial arts school. In fact, it was quite the opposite, because the way I was brought up in the martial arts my entire life, making money meant you were selling out. Making a living at the martial arts was unheard of. Like if you sold uniforms or sold equipment or you charge extra for your tuition, you were a sellout. I had to break that mold. I had to break that stigma. I had to break that, that entire ideal and mentality, so that I could understand that if I'm good at what I do, I could make a great living at it. Right. And then I started, my school took off. And then once I moved into that new location, it grew even more and more and more. And then I said to myself, you know what? I hate landscaping. I hate getting up at 6 a.m., being covered in dirt, cutting lawns, walking miles after miles, dealing with employees and people that were lazy or stole or whatever. So I said, you know what, I already built my business up, the dojo, the martial arts school, to a point where I could survive. And I had a conversation with my ex and said, would you be objective to me to just dive in full time? And she said, yeah, you know what? I know if you do, you're going to be a success. And I did. And it was beyond my wildest imagination. I grew that school, the first school, to 470 members, right? I opened up 5 other schools. At that point, I was like Donald Trump without the bad hair. Like I was buying buildings. I was opening up schools. I had 6 schools on Long Island. I had 5 schools out of the country. I had a school in Costa Rica, Bermuda, Puerto Rico. We had a little satellite school that trained in Thailand. I had 2 other schools that were out of state that trained in Michigan, one, and another one in Brewster, New York, and then 6 on Long Island. So I was literally traveling every weekend to a different destination and teaching martial arts. So my students got to see me like 1 day a week, when in reality, they thought I was just being lazy and going home and sitting on my couch. But I was at another school the next day in another state or another country every day. And then my daughter was born. And as you know, your entire world changes where you never thought it could ever change or shift perspective. And you're like, wow, I never thought I could love something or someone so much and want to be with that person every second of the day. And I found that I didn't have the time, and I didn't want her to grow up going, Daddy was a great dad. He provided for me and we have a lot of money, but I never saw him. So I started to cut back, and then I started to say, you know what? I'll just let them take that school over. I'll just sell it off and I'll give them my partnership, and they will still fly me in for a seminar here and there and blah, blah, blah. And I ended up going, getting out of some of the schools. And later on, it took me a while to transition out and just go down to like 4 schools. And now eventually I am now down to 1. And I have to tell you, it's the most peaceful life after running that many schools. It's so easy. It's much better. If I don't want to go in, like tonight, my mother-in-law needs help. My wife is going out with her friends for dinner. I'm just staying home and taking care of her and relaxing, watching TV with my daughter.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would have been. It would have been tough for me to give up the school in Bermuda.
Well, believe it or not, that's the only school that I'm still affiliated with. And periodically, they used to fly me in 4 to 6 times a year. Now it's like once in a blue moon, but that school is still open and still teaching my curriculum. So,
That's
but
awesome.
I had like, Costa Rica was amazing too. Like, I would travel there 4 to 6 times a year as well. So, I chose my destinations pretty well. I was lucky. These people just happened to ask me, but I actually had these gorgeous schools to travel to.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm 61 years old right now, so I know that that's not super old, but at the same time, my interests have changed. My desire to be out on the road all the time. It's like I'm like a 61-year-old rock star that no longer wants to tour, right? Like that.
A good segue too, because I want to finish up with two different topics here. So, talk about entering martial arts and you using that old model of teach for free and barely make enough money and don't
Hmm.
do it for a living and stuff like that. So that is still extremely strong and emphasized in the judo community, right? Especially in the United States.
Yeah,
And to me, and I'm not sure how much you know about judo or know
yeah. I,
anybody that
I used to
runs
practice
any
judo.
judo schools. Okay. So, again, it's like the majority of the judo schools in the United States and probably the world, honestly, but it's a little bit different because, like you can have schools that are run by the township, kind of thing
Right,
in other countries or whatnot. So it's a little different. But most of the judo schools in the United States are privately owned, but they're almost all nonprofit, right?
right,
So
right.
you look at the attendance of judo and the participation in judo in the 70s, 80s, 90s. You're here, and then just slowly it's gone down, down,
Yeah,
down, down, down. And I'm positive that one of the reasons is because of that business model. Because
right,
people don't they love judo, but they're tired of having to basically pay people to come in a way,
right.
because they're barely making enough money to pay the rent, and
Yeah.
every year the rent goes up, and every year it's harder to get people, and so I am, and I don't know if outsider is the word, but there's not a lot of judo clubs in the United States that are you could think of it as a full-time business, to where I want to run this as a business, to where this is what I get paid to do. And so I'm getting a little bit of not a ton, but a little bit of not kickback, but like resistance, from some of the
Yeah,
community, saying, "Oh, this you shouldn't, charge for this and
yeah.
whatnot." So, how did you deal with that situation? As
Okay.
far as everybody else is doing it for free, and you're getting some negative
Yeah.
feedback and saying, "Hey, you shouldn't do this. Charge people this much." And so what was your perspective, and how did you deal with that at the time?
Well, I'll give you an example that's totally unrelated to martial arts. But my dog, I have two little Maltipoos, and my dog had a growth on her chest, right? A tumor. So one of our family members is a very prominent veterinary oncologist. So we asked his opinion, and we had gotten two different vets costs. Now the surgery was like $6,800, right? But there was another guy was like $2,000. So we asked my wife's cousin, who's very famous, like world famous. He did surgery on an elephant in Africa once, that kind of fame. Like he's on National Geographic. He looked at everything and he said to me, "You know what, Allie, you get what you pay for. I know of this veterinary clinic that does it for 2,000, and they're good there, but they're not surgeons. Do you care about your dog enough to get a real quality person on them?" And we said, "Of course." And he said, "Don't worry, I'll make a phone call, I'll get it cut in half." And he did for us, right? Like, but at the same time, it's about you get what you pay for. Now, judo has a mindset because they developed this mindset thinking that they couldn't charge. And by the way, it's no different than martial artists that I know that run martial arts schools that are classical. And like I just had a lady who was going to sign her kids up, and she had 2 kids, and she said, "How much do you charge?" And I said, "We have X amount of dollars per month per child." "Well, do you do a family discount?" I said, "Not for the first 2." She goes, "Oh, I found a school for a third of the price." And I said, you should probably join them. But do remember, you get what you pay for, right? Like you're not going to get all the things we do and blah, blah, blah. And I went through our value stack. So in regards to judo and price, you're not selling judo. Like most people, they sell Aikido, Judo, Karate, BJJ. You're not really selling that. You're selling what you get out of it, right? So the only problem with Judo is, and we're a big art because we do Jujitsu and Ninjitsu and throws, and I did Jujitsu my whole life. Judo is a pretty brutal style. Like people, look, the number 1 fear is falling. The number 2 fear is drowning and I think the number 1 fear is speaking in public. 2 is falling, and the 3rd is drowning. Well, judo does them all. You fall, you yell, you fight. So like you're digging into all those fears, right? And by the way, how do you sometimes get yourself motivated to go to class and be thrown 100 times on the floor? You got to have a certain mindset for that. So I think the judo schools are dropping the ball with a lot of the lessons that could be taught, striking lessons and other things, and the newas are the grappling and all the floor stuff and BJJ-ish style, and the throws. But you got to make it appealing where people are not feeling brutalized. I think that that's what happens with judo. Even my style, they'd rather join a taekwondo system where they could kick and punch and spar. But even in that, they don't want to get hit that much. I mean, I just saw a recent taekwondo competition where they don't contact. Hey, there's no contact. They just air kicks and then they call points. Like they're not even hitting each other anymore. So I think that that's a big downside on judo, but you have to package it in a way where you're not buying the judo, you're buying the benefits. You're buying the life-changing skills that will teach you to be a leader, have self-discipline, have focus, have grit and control. That's what you should be selling. You want to picture or paint the picture of what you will become if you do judo, not like a judo player and you're going to be a tough guy and you want to, that's true, but you want to have all the benefits that you're selling for a parent to put their kid in is what they'll get out of judo, not just the technique and the physical stuff. Does that make sense?
No, it 100% does, and I'm definitely doing that. And I got some advice early on from an individual named Paul Jordan that owns a successful judo school in Ohio. And again, like when you type in on like a YouTube or a Spotify or whatever, how do you run a successful martial art business? Now, jiu-jitsu, there's 1,000 videos.
Yeah.
Judo, there's barely any.
Right.
Ninjitsu, there's barely any. Kung Fu, there's barely any.
Right.
So I found the interview, and that's one of the things that he brought up is, originally he was saying we're a judo school. You look at my website and it's me with these famous judokas, and there's, giant pictures of people getting thrown 10 feet in the air, and there's this and that. And he was told that he needs to get away from that model and he needs to start selling life skills. So now he's a martial arts school. His website has people laughing and having fun. Exactly. And he talks about that he's a problem solver, right? And then the next thing that I'll say about that is I definitely think that, that old, intense, throw you hard on the concrete, wipe the blood off and keep going model that judo had forever is something in the past, man. And we got to get past that because, you're going to have special people that come in well, not that I'm special, but I came in and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed being physical, and I enjoyed, that I could go as hard as I can. But the majority of people are not going to do that. So I have been teaching a very recreational program. I we do a lot of crash pad work. I have my 5-layer floor system. I haven't pushed competition at all. I tell people all the time, we're going to do a conditioning drill. Anytime you want to sit out,
Right.
please do so. With the
Yeah.
kids, I push them a little bit hard,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I don't really, but with the adults especially, I'm like, if you don't want to do this, you don't have to. Like,
Yeah.
don't feel pressure that you have to do this kind of
Right.
thing. Like if you're a 25-year-old guy that works out 5 times a week, I might emphasize a little bit more, but I got 50-year-olds in my class.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if you don't want to do this, don't do it. Like,
Gotcha.
I'm not going to put you on the spot. But anyway, so yes, so I'm definitely following that advice. So the last topic I want to talk about, and I know we're right at an hour and I don't want to keep you, but before I get into the final topic, thank you again for coming on here. You're just a well of knowledge, and I really hope that some people listen to your content and your YouTube, or I'm not sure if you have a YouTube channel, but
we
your
do have a
Spotify.
YouTube channel for all of those.
Okay. Yeah, but I hope people find you and learn from you like I did. So again, thank you so much. And again, we had technical difficulties last time, and I apologize, and I feel like a freaking moron, but
no worry, we're back on track, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, but thank you.
So what was your last question?
So the last thing. So, with today's day and age, and, I know that you've mentioned this because I've been listening to your masterclass. I've listened to the first 2. I just finished the one with Gus that you had.
Yeah.
And, you've mentioned about some of the online curriculum stuff that you've done, and that, you offer a library to your students, and it's, $20 or whatever it is.
Right.
And it seems like that. So you got 2 aspects I want you to talk about. Like, one, you have a library for your students. It's not very expensive. You put a lot of time into it, but it's there and the students have access to it. But also, sometimes you hear about these cases to where you can have maybe like online clients or people that want to learn from you but are just so far away that they really can't train with you and stuff like that. So, how do you feel about kind of like these online curriculums and doing some remote students and just doing more and more and more online related stuff? How do you think that is, do you think that's the way martial arts is going, or how can we use that as a tool as school owners to promote and grow our school?
I don't think martial arts are going in that direction. Many people have said that for many years now, and it's still, to me, you could learn via, like, we actually will Zoom all our classes. Every single class is still Zoomed ever since COVID, and we still do it to this day. But now it's shifted from kids being at home training with us, which we would be like, hey, Johnny, stand still, like just like I'm doing in a classroom, to like now we Zoom the classes, but we don't go. I only have 2 students that travel from about an hour and 10 minutes away. And when I see them sign in, I'm like, hey, Chris, this is what you got to do. Hey, James, make sure you straighten out that punch. Show me that move again. And it's a father and son duo, so they get to do self-defense on each other and so on. But it's very difficult in our system to learn online if I'm not focused on that student one-on-one, right? But I do absolutely think, and I do have DVDs. I have a stack of DVDs that I got. I have like 35 high that my teacher, he would just hand to me when I'd go to Japan. He says, here's all your new 30 DVDs, $5,000, pay me when you get home. Like, it was no questions asked. I literally have people that complain about my $20 DVD and go like, I think that should be included in the tuition. I'm going, why would it be? Like, if I was selling a DVD in a DVD case, you'd pay $20 for it. You expect me now to include that. I didn't get a lot of that, but not everyone goes to the DVDs, and they'll ask me like, I never learned X, Y, and Z. I'm like, well, it's on the DVD. Like, if you want to learn it ahead of time, learn it early, then practice it in class, and I'll correct you. So sometimes people don't want to put the extra effort in to the training that they should. But in regards to being just an online curriculum, you could, especially if you're doing one-on-ones, you could certainly do something. Or you could teach. I used to teach a husband and wife down in Florida, and I would show them the moves and they'd watch me do it during class and they'd practice on their own. I would bow my class in real life and they'd be on Zoom, and bow in with us. And it was like they were a part of it, but you'd never quite get the same training that you would if you were in person, right? So to me, it wasn't my most favorite thing. It seemed like a distraction. And I never really did well with it, although I have a lot of friends that still do online Zoom classes and make a living out of it. So that's my answer to that.
Yeah, because I definitely want to, I'm producing free content, obviously, and I've actually started filming a little bit during class, because, I mean, you know how it is. I mean, not that people don't like it or isn't happy to help, but you're like, oh, can you come by on a Wednesday at 5 o'clock,
right.
and help me film? And then they got to drive. And then you're like, oh, do you want me to buy you some dinner? And they're like, no, it's all good. Or I just do it during class where I'm already teaching anyways.
People are training, right? They're doing their technique. You say, camera, follow me. I'm over here with my student, and here's the move, the figure four, or the mount position, or how to do a guard sweep, or whatever the case may be. And then you clip that up and either put it on a university, like we have Spark, and it has Spark University, and I could make up curriculums, and that's how I have my beginner white, yellow, green, blue, purple, brown curriculum, the full curriculum with handwritten notes and the whole nine available, and I charge $19.99 for it.
Right. Yeah, I definitely am going to venture into that, and again, like when I get to the point to where I am financially stable enough, and I know you said that you can't wait, but I'm not there yet, but my goal is to leave my job and do it.
Good.
And I know that, like you said, once you're not tied up with that other job, you're able to put in all this effort. And I 100% agree, but I'm still not quite there yet with only 22 students, but
right.
Once I get closer to 30 or 40.
Yeah, what you need to do is look out what you make at your job, 50 grand, 80 grand, and what it takes, how many students to make that money, and, profit, of course, right? Like, not just gross, but net, right? Your profit, and go, okay, I can make close to that where I am now to what I need to make. Now I'll get out of this and put twice the amount of effort into that. You'll be able to make the money that you're looking for. So you'll do it slowly, but I would do it a little quicker than you would anticipate by working hard on setting goals and really setting your parameters as far as numbers go to be able to get yourself to that point.
Well, I appreciate that, Allie.
Yeah.
Thank you again. We're a little bit past an hour, so I don't want to hold you up, but man,
no problem, man. I enjoyed
absolute honor. It's not
you.
Only to help anybody that listens, but also to help me, because I want to become a better business owner. I want to become a better teacher. I want more people to get involved with martial arts in general, not just judo. I mean anything. It's a big goal of mine, especially with today's youth of they have what I like to call electronic hobbies instead of physical hobbies. Everybody's hobby is a video game, to be a YouTuber, or to just watch, stuff on their phone, right? It's like that's everybody's hobby these days. So it's like it's okay to do that, but like we need to figure out a way that we could get people involved in a physical hobby, and I think martial arts is one of the best things for people to get involved with out of any activity.
1,000%. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate being here. If anyone needs to get in touch with me, I'm on Facebook. You could go to Allie Alberigo, Shihan, Allie Alberigo, Shihan, or just search me. I also have my website, Li Ninja, or my actual website for myself is alliealberigo.com. I have a few books that I just promoted and published. And if you have any questions or you just want to chat, reach out.
Yeah, and I'm going to put all this stuff in the show notes as well. I'll email you, and you could send me the links, and then I could just copy and paste anything you
Okay.
want on there. But I hope that it brings you in some leads as well. It's super
Thank
important
you.
to me.
I appreciate it. You
Allie.
have a great day, man. We'll see you soon, Cole. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Bye bye now, Allie.
Bye.